Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. This is going to be my review for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover issue number 2. Sorry I'm a little bit late on this one. When it came out last week, I mean, things were a little busy in terms of other reviews I wanted to get out. And also, I kind of forgot it was coming out. Like, when New Comic Book Day arrived, I was all about that new Kylo Ren comic because a buddy of mine saw Kylo Ren in the shower. He said that Kylo Ren had an 8-pack. The Kylo Ren was Shreddet. I mean, this comic has Shredder, but it didn't have Shreddet Kylo Ren. So I was like 0 out of 10. I honestly kind of forgot it came out until later on. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I ended up not getting to it until recently, so that's why it's late. And that's just me talking about it being late and Kylo Ren. So pretty typical first minute of a Dawson video. Let's talk about the actual issue. So in this issue, we explore Kylo Ren's past with Luke finding the Knights of Ren. Wait, that's Kylo Ren again. Actual, for sure, talking about the issue. And so they encounter the Knights of Ren, and then, no, okay, in this issue, I actually thought we did a little bit better than the first one. I mean, the first one was solid. It was decent. It was, you know, generic crossover-y stuff. Like I said in the first issue review, crossovers, they have to do like a lot to get me excited. I've seen it all. I have to search the most obscure, weird crossover stuffs to get excited now. Crossovers are so overdone for me, and comic crossovers in general are just paper teaming up with itself, so it's not really that exciting to me in general, but I, you know, thought it was a cool premise, and it was like a decent first episode, I'm so used to talking about TV shows, but first issue, rather generic. This issue, I think, really actually made this more exciting and a little bit less generic. The first half is kind of more generic, like, team-up-y stuff. Like, the first issue was all of that, like, oh, two teams meet each other, misunderstanding, don't know who you are, guess we'll fight. Like, that's classic Toku stuff, like, well, we don't have all the facts, but I guess it's time to fight. Second half, or the first half of the second issue, was the other half of that team-up trope of, well, maybe we misunderstood each other and we should all talk about friendship, and that's kind of what happened. So they're finishing the fight, and then they realize that they should probably talk this out, and April shows up to cover the news story of the famous Power Rangers being in the city. And so then they all go talk in the sewers, and the Rangers reveal their identities, and, you know, all that sort of generic by-the-numbers stuff you have to get out of the way. Then we do get some cool little interactions and some sort of specific pairings off of characters that will kind of work well together. Like you have Donnie and Billy, which I thought was a cool little bit, and Kimberly and April and stuff like that. And meanwhile, in the Shredder camp, we learn more about what's going on with Tommy and why he's there. And he's like, oh, you have to prove yourself and I'm impressed with you, all that generic stuff. But then we learn that Tommy's there to save some dude named Tyler. He meets a guy named Tyler that's in there in the Foot Clan and says, oh, your parents said you got mixed up with some weird hooligans, some street youths, and I'm here to get you out. And then the dude actually, like, tases Tommy or something, and Shredder's like, oh, you proved your loyalty. That sounds nothing like Shredder. That's what ended up happening. So Barry probably erased it from the timeline. Damn it, Barry. I have no idea who Tyler is. Was he somebody mentioned in the comics or the show that I'm just forgetting? Am I from Earth 38 and everyone remembers Tyler on Earth 1? I don't know, but I don't know who Tyler is. So maybe I'm just stupid, but I don't think he's real. I mean, he's real, but I mean, I don't think he's ever been mentioned before. I think he's just been invented for this. So, if you know who Tyler is, let me know in the comments. He's there to save Tyler, so we knew there was a reason he was infiltrating, unless there was another spell involved, but it's to save this dude Tyler that got mixed up with the wrong crowd. The wrong crowd is Shredder. You know how it is? Kind of nice, though, because it was a generic reason, generic stuff with Tommy, which I'll get to in a second, but it was kind of a nice twist that it already is up, and, like, Tyler actually proved himself by finding out Tommy and stuff like that. And so then Tommy's caged and he's like, well, if you're gonna cage me, I'm just gonna morph in the cage. No, I'm in a cage, but I'm gonna morph, it'll intimidate you. But so he kind of does that. And then, I don't remember exactly what order this happened in, so I'm just gonna talk about this now so I don't forget it. But like later on, the Rangers and the Turtles end up finally teaming up to fight. So we actually get to see them go out there as allies, and that happens. But all the stuff going on with them isn't nearly as interesting as the villain stuff, because the true interesting turning point happens at the end, where you first see Rita and company sort of becoming aware of what's going on, and then Bebop and Rocksteady show up, and oddly enough, they actually look like they go really well with Rita's crew. Like, they look like they could be, like, Squat and Babu's friends. But then all the villains are sort of interacting. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of an interesting element. But then the really interesting part comes in when Shredder and Rita start talking, and then he uses the green power morpher, which he got from Tommy, to morph into a Green Ranger Shredder costume, which is an original costume for this comic, which is an amalgam of Shredder's design and the Green Ranger costume. I think it looks really, really cool. I like it a lot. Lightning Collection figure, please. That was really cool twist. Like I said, I thought this comic was fine and enjoyable. But it was just kind of generic, and especially I harped a lot in the last issue about, oh, this stupid Tommy stuff again, like yet another story about Tommy turning to the dark side. And so I was pleasantly surprised that they subverted my expectations and very quickly just showed that that was a means to get to this stuff with Shredder. And I think the Shredder Ranger stuff not only is kind of just a more cool, like shallow-y crossover what-if scenario, but it's much more of an interesting way to take advantage of these two universes coming together in a story. And I honestly was expecting the Tommy stuff to drag out till at least halfway through, if not more, and I'm glad that that was cut off and it was revealed to just be the means to a more interesting end. So that made me really happy, not just because it's a cool looking suit and a cool idea, but it just makes it so much more interesting than the oh no evil Tommy again. Because again, I talked about like how Tommy being the one to infiltrate and all that made sense because he has the most character reasoning and potential for that. But then again, I was thinking after I read this, they still could have done Green Ranger Shredder without a, oh no, Tommy's evil again story. They could have easily had some other reason why the Turtles and Shredder and them are all in the same orbit, and maybe Tommy got kidnapped or something like that, and then you still could have had an infiltrator story elsewhere. But I feel like I'm nitpicking at this point because they veered away from that, which I'm at least happy about. But overall, I thought this was a lot stronger issue, especially in the second half. I'm still like, oh my god, but I'm like legitimately looking forward to reading the next issue. Like last time, I'm like, yeah, you know, it's fine, I'll read that, it's Power Ranger stuff. But this time I'm like, oh, this is actually going to be interesting. So yeah, solid issue. I'd give it a 7.5. It's definitely moving in a more interesting direction than I originally thought it was going to. Also, I'm appreciative of the fact that they did like a news story unveiling of the Green Ranger Shredder stuff when this issue came out. Comics have a horrible, horrible history of always showing their big reveal in a press release. It's stupid, so I'm glad they actually lined it up this time. Anyway, that's about it for this time. What am I even talking about? That's about it for this time. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Until next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.